I'm going there to help them, and they're just like the fruits of the devil.
You nasty assholes, man.
It was like so liberating to read that.
Hey everybody, I'm Aurora.
I'm Violet.
And welcome back to the T.N.I book club. Today we'll be discussing Goddess of Filth by Castro.
It slapped. Here is the synopsis.
One hot summer night, best friends Lourdes, Fernanda, Ana, Perla, and Paulina hold a seance. It's all fun and games at first, but their tipsy laughter turns into terror when flames burn straight through their prayer candles and Fernanda starts crawling towards her friends and chanting in Nahuatl, the language of their Aztec ancestors. Over the next few weeks, shy, modest Fernanda starts acting strangely, smearing herself in black makeup, shredding her hands on rose thorns, sucking the sin out of the mouths of the guilty. The local priest is convinced it's a demon, but Lourdes begins to suspect it's something else, something far more ancient and powerful.
Spooky.
Yes. So I was the one who had picked this book. I was watching YouTube and somebody had actually read it. And when I looked up the author, I saw that she was from San Antonio, where we're from. And I was like, duh, of course we're going to have to cover a horror book by a San Antonio author. But when I brought this book to you, what were your first impressions?
I thought it was going to be different than what it was. I thought it was going to be like, probably like The Exorcist, kind of, especially by the synopsis. And it wasn't that at all. And there were multiple twists. Well, there was really one twist that kind of got me at the end.
Yeah, well, I didn't read the synopsis, so I didn't know what we were going into, but I was like, I like this cover, I like the title, what else could go wrong? But yeah, it was definitely very different from what I was expecting it to be. Mm-hmm. So you want to like start by going over like the general plot?
Okay. Lourdes and her friends, they conduct a seance and it goes wrong, and Fernanda, she gets possessed by this ancient Aztec goddess, but they don't know who it is at first, right? And they just think it's like a ghost. Fernanda starts acting kind of crazy by societal standards.
Well,
a little bit crazy. And you know, they get the Catholic Church involved, and it really dives into the issues that young girls face, especially young Latina girls. There is a lot of Catholic imagery and kind of like religious horror a little bit, in my opinion. I think it was very purposeful how Castro kind of like made them clash, like the Catholic Church against the old Aztec beliefs.
Yeah. The book is told from a few different perspectives, and I wasn't expecting that because it starts off written in first person and you're getting Lourdes' POV, and like they're having like a little kickback, and the book starts like from there. Like the first few pages the possession happens, right? Mm-hmm. Which I was really not ready for, but I appreciated, because I think sometimes books, I don't think all books need to have the same kind of pacing, right? But there are certain times when you're reading something, you're like, okay, but like,
let's get to the plot. They do a lot of setting up.
Yeah. And this one, like Castro, she didn't take her time with it. She just got right into the story, which I really liked. I also really liked how she described the possession initially, because she's like, you know, she's crouched down, squatting, and her arms are up like she's giving birth in the wild, and she's just like, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
They did that again when she first discovered the goddess, but the goddess did that position and she's like bleeding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like there was a lot of talk about menstrual cycles. I think we both, like, when we first read it, we were kind of like, oh, that's a lot of blood. But like that kind of goes into like the filth part of it, right? Because we're all told that like
women are filthy.
The thing that was also really cool to me in this book is the friendship. One thing that I do wish was that we did get to spend a bit more time with some of the friends. Like we get a little more backstory on Paulina.
I think it's Pauline,
sorry. Yeah. So we get some backstory on Pauline and Perla, right? But I did want to, I was like, well, what about Anna? Like, I feel like we didn't really learn that much about Anna, but that's okay because it's really like Lourdes and Fernanda's story. But it was cool seeing that's what I was talking about before. It's written in different perspectives. So it's first person, but also there's a lot of third person perspective from
all of them are third person except Lourdes.
Everyone is, yeah, pretty much all the perspectives that you get, but really the only perspectives are Fernanda's and then the priest later on, which we'll talk about.
I actually didn't like that.
You didn't like that we got his perspective?
No, I didn't like that it was written in third person and first person.
What didn't you like about it?
I thought it was jarring as I was reading it. I felt like it would have flown better if it flowed better if she stuck to either first person, or which I would prefer first person or third person. But
I think it works for me because it does kind of end up being Lourdes' story, because you learn not only, I mean, yes, it's about Fernanda, but like Lourdes is also discovering herself and the things that she's interested in. And you find out later, like, she's been writing and she's never thought about it. In my mind, I was thinking maybe this is Lourdes' book, and like we're getting the direct, first person from her, but then she can't express what it would be like from other people's perspective. So I kind of took that as like her kind of telling those parts, but I guess I could see why it would be jarring, because it was unexpected when we started reading it, and then it just kind of changes. There's also really cool things within the book where it would be like breaks in the story, or if the perspective was changing mid-chapter, you would have the eyes on the inside.
Oh, yes.
And like sometimes the eyes would be open, there'd be one open, sometimes they'd be sagging, and that was really effective for me.
I like that too a lot. I forgot that detail was there.
It was cute. It was a cute detail. When Fernanda gets possessed, like, she's kind of known in the group as being a little bit of the goody. Like, everybody else is like drinking like alcohol at the beginning, and she's got like Sprite. She's also really good in school, and she doesn't really wear heavy makeup. But then after this possession happens, she's got black lipstick and she's got winged eyeliner, which Lourdes is like, yeah, it reminds me of the eyeliner that I taught her, and my mom used to hate it because she said it made me look like a pachuca. And that was kind of a detail, even though it's like just one little mention. I was like, pachuca, what's a pachuca? And I had to look it up because I wasn't familiar. And then I saw that the pachucas were part of the Zoot Suit movement.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a rebellious time where pachucas were the ones who kind of played with gender norms as far as like their clothing, and they would wear like a lot of like winged eyeliner and like dark lipstick, and it was interesting to me because I looked up more into it. There were also Black people involved in the movement as well, and people were being attacked for just dressing this way at that time, because people found it was disrespectful, especially when people had to ration their materials during World War II. It's crazy. But anyway, that I love seeing that detail. And then she would also say other things that would like bring it into like being very San Antonio specific.
I was nervous at first when I read all the descriptions on San Antonio, but then I was like, people can do their own research. I actually really like the detailed descriptions of San Antonio and like different places that they went and the clubs they went to, and I was like, I know that area.
I forgot to look up if that club was a real place at some point. The Riverwalk Club that they end up going to in the story. I'll look it up and I'll put the details here if it is a real place. But it reminded me of places that like people used to go to back in the day. That was something I really related to, because I even though I wasn't born in San Antonio, I grew up here most of my life, and so I felt like her descriptions, especially of like the girls, like I knew those girls. I was one of those girls, and especially when she describes in the beginning, like the whole reason that they do this seance is because they're trying to, more specifically Lourdes, but like they all just want to get out of San Antonio. They feel like they're being suffocated by their responsibilities and, the small mindsets of this. Because even though San Antonio is a big city, it's also like kind of a small town mentality a lot of the time, and people want to escape that. And I definitely remember feeling that growing up. And now I've kind of changed my point of view of the city now that I'm older and I'm able to explore and have seen like all the things that San Antonio has to offer, especially in contrast to other cities that I've lived in.
Big time.
It's crazy.
I just moved here a few years ago, and I've lived in a lot of different areas, and San Antonio is definitely one of the best ones and definitely one of my favorites.
What do you like? What did you like when you first came here, like that you noticed?
People open the doors for each other here. Like, it's that subtle politeness, and that might be a southern thing because I'm from up north, but that was the biggest thing. It was like, it's the subtle differences. Like, people will smile, people will make small talk, and they'll open doors for you. People here are very warm. I like the weather overall, except when it decides to rain for days on end randomly.
That's new.
But, and I think that the history is so interesting, and not even just the history, the geography of San Antonio. Like, I think the Edwards Aquifer is so cool when I learned about it, and like how the city is like slanted. Anyway, it's like a whole thing. But
yeah, San Antonio has a lot to offer, and there's like a lot of art, but you have to, there are things that you do have to seek out. Like you're not just going to see it if you stay on one side of town.
Yeah. And I think Austin probably overshadows a little bit of San Antonio's art too, because everyone's like obsessed with Austin's like art space, but we have a lot of that here too.
And that's why I got so hype about like seeing a book that's actually set in San Antonio, because it was like, I know these places, I know these people, and I had never seen that before. There is another book that I read after this that also had really a lot of San Antonio references, and it's called Dead First. That was another interesting book, but again, that was after I had read Goddess of Filth. I really thought it was interesting how she was including the possession story. Wasn't just a demon possessing this girl. It was a lot deeper than that. How did you feel about the whole possession aspect of it?
I really liked it. I thought it was very interesting because it was less about like a parasitic possession like in The Exorcist, and more about this goddess kind of just living within her, and it was more of like they were like conversing with each other kind of.
Yeah.
And I really like that aspect. I do wish she was more similar to a deity kind of, because I thought that their discussions eventually, maybe it was purposeful though, now that I'm thinking about it, where Fernanda has discussions with the deity, and I can't remember the goddess's name, but
oh my goodness, I literally was practicing pronouncing it. I'm sorry if I said it wrong still.
I like that she wrote it all out.
Yeah.
It keeps it alive.
I'm going to put it on the screen here so you guys can look into her. But we'll refer to her as the Aztec goddess. But I thought that was really different, and I was not expecting that at all. And I love the idea of her possessing her because she is trying to deliver a message so that people are prepared for the next evolution of the world. And I thought that was a really interesting twist on the story.
Period.
When the goddess is trying to speak through Fernanda, she speaks in Nahuatl, and like no one knows how to really understand it. And like Lourdes, for a while, she tries to find things online, and she's like, girl, why don't I just go to UTSA? Which I was like, hey, I know that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really cool. So she goes and she meets Dr. Camacho, and she is the one who starts to help them translate what this message is. And then not only that, but like when everyone gets involved and they find out that that's what's going on, like Perla helps, and she's translating it into the English translation into Spanish, because they're going to make sure that everyone gets it. And I love that whole, like, it was the whole team involved at that point. That whole scene, okay, I feel like we're like jumping around. We find out that Fernanda has always had a crush on Ruben. She'd been kind of taught from her culture and her mother, who's very religious.
Catholicism.
Yeah, that, you know, you have to like repress all of those feelings, and that being sexual is evil and filthy. And she's never really acted on it. Like, she doesn't even masturbate, right?
Insane to me. Yeah.
But
sorry.
But it's like, but I could relate, because I mean, I'm not afraid to share this, But I also was very scared of my own sexuality, and I felt embarrassed because, yeah, like people always talk about how guys like jerk off, right?
Yep.
Like it's
Don't wear this, their mind will go wild.
I know, and they want to act like women aren't just as sexual when that's not the truth. We're just constantly being told that we're not allowed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's insane. And so there's like a whole scene where Fernanda is communicating with the goddess, and the goddess is showing her how to explore and enjoy her own body. And I was like, bruh,
That was one of my favorite scenes.
it was
like so liberating to read that. I was like,
exactly.
get it.
I had never seen anything like that in a book before.
Mhm.
Man, if I had read this when I was younger, I would have felt so much better about myself, because I think especially the way she describes it, I think she does it a really good way of like really showing the beauty of it.
I thought it was very respectful as well, especially since she's writing about younger women, even though they were adults, but they were still kind of like 19, 18.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very respectful and tasteful.
Yeah. And the goddess tries to like reassure Fernanda these feelings are okay and
natural.
And they're natural. Exactly. And
beautiful, not filthy.
Exactly. And I really loved the empowerment that Fernanda felt. And the more there were things that the goddess was making her do that like were really alarming at first. Like,
I never understood the thorn thing where she was like messing with the thorns in the bush.
When she was like masturbating in the garden.
Well, she had like scraped up hands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't understand what that was about, but it happened.
Yeah, there's a part where the professor kind of explains, because I think Lourdes tells her about that behavior. She says there's connection with the earth. The goddess is the goddess of sexuality, and so that's why she's masturbating all the time. The black makeup that she ends up wearing is because the goddess eats sin, which is a really fun aspect, which I wish there were more instances of in the book.
That's actually my biggest qualm, is that I don't think the book is long enough. I think she had a lot to say, and I think she could have said more, and I think she could have expanded a lot more, not only on the friends like you were talking about, but also on the goddess herself. And I think so at the end of the book, there's like this twist at the priest, because they call into this priest and he's kind of like always like pressuring Fernanda and saying that she's like filthy or some shit like that and she needs to change or whatever. And there's like a scene where it turns out that the priest actually has really disgusting sexual desires and he's like a serial killer.
Yeah.
And he killed, like, I can't remember if it was his cousin or his sister, but he killed a girl who was related to him. And
Martha.
Yeah. And just because he thought it was disgusting to be sexually attracted to her. And then she's like in his freezer. And while I liked it, I feel like it kind of took over at the end, because he went to finish Fernanda off to like cleanse her. Yeah. And then he was killed.
Well, it was Fernanda's mom calls in the priest because she wants her exercise. Mm-hmm. And that just ends up making things worse. Fernanda's mom does not trust Lourdes. She does not trust their friends. But then she realizes that like the only time that Fernanda will act normal is when Lourdes is around, is when her friends are around. And you find out that like the goddess has been acting out because she's got this big message that she's trying to share. And I really like how Fernanda is explaining this to Lourdes. She's like, just how like your little sisters, they get really frustrated when they can't express what they're trying to say. That's what's happening with this goddess. So we just need to get somebody who can translate the message. And that's why they ended up going to the professor instead of using the priest. And so the Fernanda's mother, Mrs. Garcia, she realizes that Fernanda has been getting better the more they've been working with the professor, and they don't need the priest anymore. They mentioned like Mrs. Garcia starts feeling judgment from the priest too, and that's why she kind of leans away from working with him. But meanwhile, he's like fixated on Fernanda and everything that he's seen, because she does act up. And in the first scene with the priest, when he first sees her, she shows her vagina and she's like, "You can eat my sin if you want." Which was so wild to me. I just loved it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, and of course that like makes him like go crazy, and he runs out of the room.
Because he's a freak.
Yeah,
I would be weirded out if someone did that to me, honestly. Like, I'm going there to help them, and they're just like, I would be weirded out. I wouldn't be turned on.
I mean, he was weirded out and turned on at the same time,
because he's the monster.
Exactly. And
So
that's why I feel like sexual repression of all genders is problematic AF. You know, just let people have their consensual adult sex, consensual adult sex, however they want to, you know, and just let that be their business so that people don't act crazy like this. But the priest was interesting to me because I did not see that coming. Like at first, there's like one chapter in the beginning where it's from his perspective, and you're kind of just like, oh, he's concerned like a priest. And then later on, like the more chapters you get from his perspective, you're like, excuse me, who? What? There's a person in his freezer. Excuse me, what? And he's just like, Fernanda.
Yeah. Yeah,
he nasty ass old man. But that's the whole thing, like, because Fernanda has this goddess in her. She can see that from the jump, and that's why she was testing him with that, because she does the same thing with Lourdes. She shows her, she's like, well, I showed him this, and Lourdes is kind of just like, okay, but like, you know, she's also not going to go into,
hey, we're besties, you can show me anything.
But yeah, like I thought that was a cool twist to have on it. And I like how he's trying to discourage them from getting more knowledge about their culture.
He sees it as evil,
like
the fruits of the devil, evil.
Exactly. And I love how she uses his character this almost kind of as a whole metaphor for the church itself.
Yep.
Because
I loved it. I was eating that shit up. I was like, oh.
It was such a contradiction. You know, he claimed to be such a godly, good person, and yet even though he knew, he was hearing that Fernanda was getting better, that didn't matter to him because that wasn't the point in the first place. He was just set on having her to himself and keeping her pure for himself, which was really upsetting. He even follows her when she goes out with Ruben and has sex, and like he's like, my Fernanda.
I actually love that scene. I was like, what the fuck is happening? I thought it was very interesting. But that's all really organized religion is, in my opinion, is just people repressing their urges, except also not. I generally feel like it's just a way to oppress women and pretty much anyone who isn't a man.
Definitely, because just as she shows in the book, sex can be empowering. And the quickest way to take power away is to tell people that you shouldn't do this, and then also use it against them. And instead of trying to teach men how to control themselves, the responsibility is all put on the women, which is so stupid to me. I've never understood that.
Not only do I think men aren't taught to control themselves, I think they're encouraged not to. And I think it's perpetuated also by organized religion
and the patriarchy. Don't forget about that.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel bad because I understand why people go to religion. I'm grateful to my parents because I feel like, unlike a lot of people I know, I wasn't really traumatized by religion, by organized religion. I was given the freedom to explore on my own and determine my own beliefs in that way. And so I feel like because of that, I have kind of a different perspective. Then I also can see how religion is just used as like a way to control people.
I think we're veering off the book, but I think organized religion, that was literally the original idea behind it. I think all of these prophets in organized religion who organized it, I genuinely believe that they weren't actually prophets seeing things. I think they just found a way to control people and kind of make like a cult.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because like there is something to say about all of these different religions having a lot of similar aspects to them, but then
I think they copied off each other. I think that's why.
Well, for me, I've always found that like it was interesting that the part of when I did go to church for a little bit, one thing that they would say is that, you know, the Bible is the word of God, but it was written by the prophets who are men, and men, at least in the Christian belief, are inherently flawed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if this is the word of God translated by man, then that's already a filter of impurity.
And then it was translated a billion times over.
Exactly. So that's why, for me personally, I've always been like, okay, well, you can have your own personal connection and work in a godly way without even being in any church, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the book. I really liked the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the story about Pauline helping Fernanda.
I love Pauline. I think she was my favorite character overall. I really liked her, even though she wasn't really like in it all the time.
What made her your favorite?
Pauline was my favorite just because she was very loyal and sensible. And I love that in a friend.
Me too. I think but that's why I liked all of the friends, because they were all loyal, even when things were going bad. Like in the beginning, they all wanted to stay, but Lourdes was like, nah. Let me help, because I think Lourdes also kind of felt guilty because she felt responsible, because she was in her mind being like, I want to summon something ancient when they were doing the ritual.
It was kind of her fault,
and
like the whole situation.
But I also thought it was interesting that even though she kind of felt that, you could tell like that throughout the story, she also was like, who am I? Like, I think Lourdes was my favorite character because I felt like I could really relate to her, especially because you talk about her struggles. Lourdes was always working, always trying to support her family. She even misses their graduation ceremony because she had to work.
Yep.
And I felt like I could understand that. And that's part of why she also really wanted to get out of San Antonio. But then, you know, she would compare herself to her friends in the beginning, but she was like, but what am I? My family doesn't make enough for them to pay for me to go to school, but then they make too much for me to get financial aid, which is a very real problem.
Yeah.
That was something that happened to me when I got out of high school. And so I was kind of just like, once we get out of here, I mean, we're kind of fucked. Like everybody gets to go and do their thing. And that's what they thought was going to happen when I think this experience kind of brought them together and reminded them that even if they do end up going on different paths, that they can still be there for each other. Even while like Fernanda was possessed, and this was a part I really liked too, when she was trying to get better, they were still trying to make sure that like she's doing everything for orientation so she didn't mess up her plans for school. Those are good friends. Like, with Lourdes, I really like that she discovers, you know, writing through this whole experience, which I felt was very real. Like, as writers, sometimes it does take like traumatic experiences, because there would be times where she would be like, I feel compelled to write about this. And I was like, I get that. I feel that so real, especially when you have like these nightmares and stuff. And they encourage her in the end, because she was like, I don't know, what am I going to do? And they're like, what are you doing right now? You're writing. You should be a writer. And she's like, oh yeah, maybe I should.
And I think it's kind of beautiful how it ended like that, with them always supporting each other, because I have friends from high school who, you know, we drifted apart kind of, but we're always there for each other. Even if we're not talking for months on end, I could always message them and be like, hey, like let's do something, or if they're out of state, right? So I really connected with that part of it.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself sometimes that, you know, I still have friends from high school who are there for me, and I'm there for them. And we love each other, even if we aren't always like yapping about nonsensical things. So
yeah, and check in on your friends too. Everyone should check in on your friends. As Fernanda's getting better, the priest is still fixated on her, and so much so he, like, when they're having a translate session with Dr. Camacho and Perla and Fernanda, the priest kind of walks in and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to take Fernanda. Fernanda's like, no, I don't want to go with you. He takes out a gun and he's like, well, yeah, come in with me. And he shoots Perla twice, dog. He shoots that diva and she lives. And then he kills the doctor, which was like so wild. And then kidnaps Fernanda. And then Lourdes like walks in on all of this. They go and find Fernanda trying to be exorcised by the priest.
Of course, it's always a man.
Yeah.
I think that was purposeful as well.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting him to be the villain of the story.
I thought it was going to be her mom.
I thought it was. Oh, okay. Let's talk about the sin sucking before we get to the end here. So the sin sucking.
Sucking.
So like The first instance of this happening is when they're in the club, right? Fernanda's like still a little messy, but like Lourdes comes to visit her one day and she tells her that she wants to go to Planeta, which is the name of the bar. And Lourdes is kind of like, well, maybe it'll help her. And so she calls the girls and they all get picked up by Ruben and they go to the club and everything's all well and dandy until Fernanda is missing on the dance floor and Lourdes finds her in the bathroom with some guy and she opens the stall and Fernanda has these like black tendrils coming out of her mouth. I would do that to everybody.
I'd walk down the street, going into HEB. Anyone who looks a little weird, they're getting it.
She could see their sins. And like this guy, he was drugging women. They find cash on him. And like at first they're like, nah, I don't want to take it.
I take their whole fucking card, bro.
You can't take the cards because that's traceable.
Buy a bunch of shit with it. Then you drop it like somewhere in a trash can somewhere. And like make sure you wear gloves. No fingerprints.
Welcome to our mini series, How to Do Crimes with Violet.
Okay. Hey, I'm the right person for that, actually.
They end up taking his money and but like Lourdes is kind of freaked out by it at the same time. But Fernanda is like trying to reassure her. She was like, nah, he's a bad guy. He's a bad person for sure. And then the other instance that it happens is like you find out that Mrs. Garcia is actually not Fernanda's mom after all.
Yeah. I remember reading that. That was like the biggest thing that really like, I was like, my jaw dropped.
I wasn't expecting her mom to have a secret.
I thought she had an affair, but that's not what happened.
I thought it was going to be a lot darker. I'm not going to lie. But like,
that she like stole her or like.
Either she stole her, she was doing something to her or something like that. But I'm glad that wasn't the case. Yeah. Not everything needs to have like a super morbid, like traumatic secret. But like those, still the secret that she had still weighed on Fernanda without her even knowing, you know? But I definitely would want more instances of it. Even though there were some pretty horrific things that happened in the story, it did kind of remind me more of almost like, I would say, fantasy or a superhero origin.
Yeah.
Especially like towards the end when like Fernanda kind of leaves with the spirit still with her. There's a Marvel character called Moon Knight, and he has also been inhabited by this ancient Egyptian god. And that's why I was like, oh man, this is a superhero story. So, and I liked how it kind of ended in that way of like, okay, now the next thing can be what her adventures are, which I don't think there needs to be a sequel or anything, but I liked having that in my mind that Fernanda is still like out here with the Aztec goddess, like sucking the sin out of the bad guys. Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, there was another plot line that caught me by surprise because in the beginning there are missing girls locally, right? And this is not,
and no one gives a shit.
Exactly. Nobody gives a shit because they're brown girls. And there's also ICE raids and stuff happening, and people are just counting these missing women as runaways. And this is something that happens in brown and black communities all of the time,
and Native American women especially as well.
Yes, indigenous.
I think they're the highest, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and the thing is, if you go online and you look up the FBI reports of the missing people, the percentages do not tell the full story.
It's depressing, dude.
And you also have to account there are so many times where these missing people are not counted on these lists because they do use their own prejudices to say, oh, they're not missing, they're runaways. There's another really great book that talks about this called Jackal. And it talks about specifically in the Black community where this happens. But I like how she mentions this. And so you find out like the local girls have been actually kidnapped by this couple.
Yep.
Who was driving around, and like Lourdes actually interacts with them at a certain point in the story. One day after her shift, and they offer her a ride home, and I was like, that's kind of random.
I thought so too, but it clicked eventually. Yeah. But it was like toward the end where I was like, wait, that probably meant something.
Literally at the end, because Fernanda encounters them, and then that's how like she gets all of those people free because she sucks the sin out of that couple. But yeah, I was like, I love how Castro is including these very real issues involved in this story. And the way that she was able to include so many important themes and topics in such a short, small book, I thought the length was fine. As much as I would have liked an expansion on some of the characters and stuff, I do think that the length was good because I don't like to feel like pages are just being filled for the sake of filling pages. And I think that she put out the story that needed to be told in a way that fully wrapped up, I think, in a satisfying way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was satisfying as well. I still think that the pacing could have been a little slower. I think she could have taken the time to, I mean, I'm repeating myself, but to go more in depth of some ideas, especially relating to the goddess, and I think she could have even gone deeper into the issue we just talked about, in some of the friends. But you know, teach their own. It's still a great book. I still liked it.
Yeah. So I guess with everything out of 5, what do you rate it?
Probably like a 3.5. Yeah.
Okay. I actually rated it a lot higher than that. I give it like a 4.25 because I really think this was a really strong book. I had a great time the whole time reading it. It was a fast read for me. I just really enjoyed it. It was something that it was unique. It was unique.
Yes. And I love the cover. I love the eyeballs inside the thing. It's very artistic. And I like when people take the time to make their books beautiful because I mean it's sitting on your shelf for life. So unless you destroy your book somehow. But anyway.
So there's another book that she's written that we both have read. We'll talk about it briefly since we didn't announce that we would be discussing it.
I love Goddess of Filth. I think I recommend it a lot. I really liked Haunting of Alejandra, like a lot. I'm giving that one well over a 4. That shit slaps. Like the way she handled all of the different characters and the way that their stories are all related to kind of motherhood and how that like sucks the life out of you. It really, I mean, I'm not a mother, but I grew up in a culture where there were a lot of mothers around me and it was very encouraged to have a family and do this and do that. Mainly for women, for men too, I guess. In a different way though. And I could see a lot of it where it was just like they like lied to themselves that they were happy or
were acting out of survival as well.
Yes, or they genuinely didn't realize how they were like put in second place behind their husbands because they saw it as like this sanctity or this sacred act that they were doing for the Lord. And so that kind of excused the fact that they were just a shadow. Or how people encourage that to be my life, or how my dreams were pushed aside because of an invisible man that I'm supposed to marry. And I thought it was very dismissive growing up and very hurtful that people didn't see me as a person. Just like it was like an accessory. I'm not sure if you experienced similar things growing up, but I think it's pretty universal for women. And the way I think the writing is smoother, especially I could tell that V. Castro really put her heart and soul into that book. And I think she has a lot of good works. Goddess of Filth is one, Haunting of Alejandra. I also read I think it was called The Dark Feminine.
Tales of the Dark Feminine. Just really briefly, I love The Haunting of Alejandra as well. Like that one really touched me. I love how it really took on generational trauma in a unique way. And just like you were saying, how it talks about motherhood in a very respectful and very real way as well. And I love the relationships of the women and all of the books. Like even like Alejandra is adopted and she ends up reconnecting with her birth mother and I love how Alejandra seeks out a therapist and the therapist plays a very pivotal role in that book. And I was like, wow, I love that. And so the Tales of the Dark Feminine is a really interesting book. It's almost like a fun version of a textbook because it goes over different goddesses and V. Castro puts her own spin on their origins, right? But then she also makes sure to include the factual parts of it and like where her research and stuff came from and then why she made some of the changes that she made in her own versions of their stories, which is really cool. So highly recommend that book as well. I guess we should also announce, since you've made it to this part of the video, that if you're interested to hear what V. Castro herself has to say, we had the pleasure of having an interview with her and getting to speak with her. So stay tuned to watch that because it's a really interesting conversation, y'all.
Thank y'all for watching. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys
See
eventually.
you next time.
Mwah. Oh wait, don't do that shit. That's weird.
Why
Just
not?
wait. I don't know.